April 30th, 1943. A British submarine surfaces in darkness off the coast of Spain. The crew drags a corpse onto the deck, dressed in a Royal Marines uniform, a briefcase chained to his wrist. They're not burying a soldier. They're deploying a weapon. This dead man is about to fool Adolf Hitler and change World War II forever. His name? Major William Martin. But Major Martin never existed. He's a homeless man from London, transformed into the greatest spy of the war. Inside that briefcase are fake invasion plans, so convincing that Hitler will move entire armies based on lies written by a dead man. This is Operation Mincemeat, the most brilliant, bizarre, and successful deception in military history. And it all started with one impossible problem. By 1943, everyone knew the Allies would invade Europe through the Mediterranean. And everyone knew the target, Sicily. It was obvious. Too obvious. The Germans had turned Sicily into a fortress, thousands of troops, artillery on every beach, machine guns covering every landing zone. Intelligence estimates were horrifying. An invasion could cost tens of thousands of Allied lives in the first 72 hours alone. But the Allies had no choice. They needed Sicily to reach Italy and strike at Nazi-occupied Europe. The question wasn't if they would invade Sicily. The question was, how do you invade the most obvious target without getting slaughtered? The answer came from a brilliant, twisted mind in British naval intelligence. Lieutenant Commander Ewan Montagu had a crazy idea. What if they made Hitler think the invasion was going somewhere else? Not by telling him, by letting him discover it himself. The plan was insane. Find a dead body, create a fake identity, plant false invasion documents, and drop the corpse where German spies would find it. Make it look like a courier died in a plane crash carrying secret plans. The documents would say the real targets were Greece and Sardinia. Sicily would seem like the decoy. If Hitler believed it, he'd move his armies away from Sicily. If he didn't, thousands of Allied soldiers would die. Montagu pitched it to British intelligence. After heated debate, they approved it. Code name: Operation Mincemeat. Now they just needed to find the perfect corpse. Finding the right body took weeks. It had to look like a drowning victim, young enough to be an officer. They found him. Glyndwr Michael, a 34-year-old homeless man who'd died from rat poison. In death, he would serve his country like he never could in life. They dressed him in a Royal Marines uniform and created Major William Martin. But here's where it gets genius. They didn't just make a fake ID. They built an entire life. Love letters from his fiancée Pam, photos of her, an engagement ring, theater tickets, an angry letter from his bank about overdraft fees, lint in his pockets, every detail perfect. If the Germans examined the body, they wouldn't find a prop. They'd find a man. The briefcase held the real weapon, 2 letters. The first, from a British general to another, casually mentioned that Sicily was just a cover story. The real invasions would hit Greece and Sardinia, written like a private note between friends, full of inside jokes and trivial details. Completely authentic looking because it was authentic. Real generals wrote and signed it. The second letter introduced Major Martin as a landing craft specialist. Everything supported the story. A military courier carrying invasion plans died in a crash, and his body washed ashore. The briefcase was chained to his wrist, exactly how couriers transported classified documents. The Germans would find what they expected to find, and that would make them believe. April 19th. Major Martin's body, packed in dry ice, was loaded onto submarine HMS Seraph. Destination: Huelva, Spain. Spain was neutral, but crawling with German spies who paid Spanish officials for information. Perfect. 11 days later, at 4:30 a.m., the submarine surfaced a mile offshore. The crew brought the body on deck, fitted the life jacket, checked the briefcase one last time. With a prayer, they slid Major Martin into the Mediterranean. The current carried him toward shore. Hours later, a Spanish fisherman found him. Local authorities notified the British consulate. The British vice-consul frantically demanded the briefcase back. His urgency made the Spanish more suspicious. They photographed everything before returning it. Within 48 hours, those photos were in Berlin. Back in London, Montagu waited. British codebreakers had cracked German communications. If Hitler believed the documents, he'd send orders to move troops. Days passed. Nothing. Then the intercepts started flooding in. German high command was redeploying divisions from Sicily to Greece. Hitler himself had seen the documents and declared them genuine. He sent his best Panzer division to Greece, thousands of miles from Sicily. Admiral Canaris, head of German intelligence, assured Hitler there was no possibility of deception. Everything about Major Martin was too real, too detailed to be fake. The operation had worked. Hitler had taken the bait completely. July 9, 1943. 160,000 Allied troops stormed the beaches of Sicily. They expected hell. But the German defenses were weaker than feared. Entire sections of coastline were undermanned. The positions that should have been swarming with enemy troops were only partially defended. Sicily fell in 38 days. Casualties were far lower than the nightmare scenarios. Thousands of soldiers who would have died on those beaches went home because a dead man convinced Hitler to look the other way. From Sicily, the Allies pushed into Italy, then toward Germany. The road to victory had opened. Operation Mincemeat had changed the war. After the war, Montagu wrote a best-selling book called The Man Who Never Was. But the body's true identity stayed classified for 50 years. Major William Martin was buried with full military honors in Huelva, Spain. His grave was tended by locals who never knew the truth. The headstone read like any other fallen soldier. But in 1996, historians finally revealed the secret. The man in that grave was Glyndwr Michael, the homeless Welshman. His family never knew what happened to him, never knew he'd become a hero. He'd died alone and forgotten, but in death, he saved thousands of lives. Today, Operation Mincemeat is taught in military academies worldwide as the perfect deception. It proved that in war, information can be deadlier than bullets. One body, one briefcase, one brilliant lie. That's all it took to fool the most paranoid dictator in history and save thousands of Allied soldiers. Major William Martin, the man who never existed, became one of the most successful spies of World War II. And Glyndwr Michael, the forgotten homeless man, changed the course of history. Sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones whose names we never knew. Until now.